Yeah, no, indeed. That's kind of my attitude for week 17, Bloom. It's kind of just the way, and I apologize. I don't mean to be bitter. I don't mean to be that guy. But if you're playing your fantasy championship in week 17, what are you doing? We're going to go through the games. Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund, Bloom here on the Audible. We're going to preview the games, Bloom, but this is going to be more like an NFL show than a fantasy show. There are fantasy takes, but there's a lot of fantasy players that you've gotten here because of that aren't going to play.
Right.
We'll get to the Chiefs in a little bit, but let's start our standard week 17 speech before we jump into the games, Bloom.
Yeah, and I did a poll this morning on Twitter, and it ends up that about 5% of my Twitter following and only 3% of the actual audience.
3% of the audience.
Yeah,
right?
2%, 5% of the actual 3%. But it is a sample, however representative. 5% either have combined week 16 and 17 Super Bowls or week 17 Super Bowl.
I think that's worse, by the way. Don't you? When it combines it, it's like, let's just make it more random.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's all kinds of ways to, you could do week 16 plus your scoring average over the year, something like that. My point is we want to serve the 5% of you. And as usual, we'll make it simple. See, there's always week 17 looking to the future, Willie Parker, etc. Week 17 breakouts can sometimes portend bigger things for the future. And we can just talk about football. Lots and lots of football, real football implications. But yeah, week 17 is the most random week of the year, easily.
Yeah.
It's the most unpredictable. Teams are going to do some scoreboard watching. We'll talk about that. And you just don't want your fantasy championship in any way to hinge on the most random week. And see, we're going to have, the rumor is 17 games next year, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think the answer is, my preliminary answer is, great, now week 17 and week 18 won't count for fantasy football. It reduces the randomness, keep the schedules, keep the divisions, keep everything as it is. And, everything will just get started a week later. We'll have a breather. And again, a chance just to become football fans again. Or maybe get some DFS and player prop bets in there.
Right. Get those player props in. And also, Eric says playing for points in week 17.
Yeah.
That might be a way to spin it as well. That's for our off-season discussion. And we won't go away. Don't worry. It's the last show of 2020. I think it is,
actually,
right?
Cease, tomorrow night I'm going to have an interview, tomorrow evening, with Abib, the back-to-back winner.
That's incredible.
Of the Football Guys Players Championship. So that'll be incredible. a little lagniappe.
A little lagniappe, which, by the way, won't be going to iTunes because
right.
It's New Year's Eve, and I'm taking
catch it live
anyway. And wouldn't you know, Bloom, of all the weeks that I'm actually on time, it happens to be week 17.
There you go.
Okay. All right. Let's jump in. 11 o'clock games, Miami and Buffalo. And the Miami side of things, people concerned and worried, Fitzpatrick coming in. He's the closer, man. We've talked about it before on this show. If they need to move the ball, they need to run their 2-minute offense, their 4-minute offense, whatever. They're going to bring in Ryan Fitzpatrick as their closer. We know that now, Jakeem Grant's hopefully be back for the playoffs, Bloom. I think that's the last thing I saw yesterday. Whatever, it's not like you're starting him or considering him against Buffalo. Really, who is going to play for Miami and who is an option if you are playing this week?
So Miami has a win in your in scenario here, and the good news is the Steelers have already announced that Mason Rudolph is starting. So Buffalo really has nothing to push for here, and the odds are on Miami's side, way ahead of schedule. Let's also take a moment to say, Cease, that in a storied career, again, we saw probably the most Fitzmagical play of Ryan Fitzpatrick's career last week, and that's something. I mean, lost in everything else that happened. That happened. It happened before we even got to Sunday. For fantasy, I guess it's Myles Gaskin. Myles Gaskin looked great last week. Those wheels. I mean, he was back and impactful, and Salvin Ahmed once again playing behind him, like when they were at Washington. So they would get Tennessee if everything holds. When I say if everything holds, I mean if Miami beats Buffalo, if Cleveland beats Pittsburgh, if Baltimore beats Cincinnati, Tennessee beats Houston. I think these are all 75% or more likely outcomes. Then they would get Tennessee in the first round. But that doesn't matter because this is all gravy, right? Making the playoffs at this point, Gravy.
Yeah.
Did I mention, speaking of gravy, this is the tastiest gravy. Number 3. The Houston Texans are right now picking number 3 with everything that happened last week. So that means Miami's picking number 3. And think of the options. Penei Sewell, a quarterback, which isn't crazy. It's not crazy, you know? If there's a quarterback there at number 3 that they evaluate as a franchise quarterback, what's the problem with having 2 franchise quarterbacks? Trading down, any number of teams are going to want a quarterback. So everything is great if you're a Miami Dolphins fan, and if they can get this win, you'll get a playoff game.
It's all good in the hood. Let's talk about the Buffalo hood and, well, the Bills. Who is playing Bloom? They don't need to put the foot on the gas. Okay, John Brown's back, whatever. Cole Beasley's out. Stephon Diggs might play a half, maybe. Sandy. I don't know why I said that. But anyway, like, okay, it's Buffalo. What do they have to play for and what do they have to push for? Not really a whole lot.
No, and unlike in years past, if you're the number 2 seed, you don't want to avoid that 2-week layoff. Well, they're going to probably Cleveland is who they would get. So like you said, a half, a series for Allen and Diggs and your starters, and then just make sure no one gets hurt. And let's see what happens. Again, Steelers fan, born and bred Western PA, Cease, but I feel like the Allen Mahomes showdown is what we deserve on the AFC side of the bracket this year, and now it's up to the Bills to prepare for it.
It's up to those Bills to prepare for it, and it's up to us to move on to the next game in Sunday. It's Baltimore. It's Cincinnati. Well, okay, the Ravens side of things. Well, who are you trotting out there, and who are you trusting really from Baltimore, Bloom? Because that backfield's talented. Hopefully it's a big J.K. Dobbins day, right? I could see that, but I could also see Gus Edwards getting 18 carries. Mm-hmm. So there you have it. That's the running back situation. I don't really trust Marquise Brown on any week. Doesn't matter if it's week 17 or not. Trusting Mandrew, I suppose, but it's against the Bengals. They might wrap this thing up early, and Baltimore's the type of team where if they do that, Bloom, they'll just keep running the ball. Hand off to Gus Edwards, run out the clock, win 13-0.
Yeah, I think your Dobbins and Edwards options in DFS are looking good. Actually, if Edwards and Lamar Jackson hadn't botched an exchange late, Edwards might have got a score and been even better than Dobbins last week. So that's something to think about. You're putting together a DFS lineup. You're looking at player props. Yeah, I think it's Lamar Jackson possibly also can get a long touchdown run here. And like you said, Marquise Brown, even Mark Andrews, not necessarily ceiling plays because this one could get out of hand pretty quickly for Baltimore. And this is how it ends up for Baltimore. We've talked about this a lot, and I think that other people are picking up on this narrative too, Cease, that a number 6 seed Baltimore team that is not as highly regarded is more dangerous than that team that was anointed going into the playoffs last year. And again, if everything holds, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, round 3, that certainly will be the Marquise Brown, marquee matchup of Wild Card Weekend.
Yeah, marquee matchup. I guess we got to talk about the Bengals. I guess we got to talk about Brandon Allen. What the what? Okay, all right. So making himself some monies, and we know Joe Mixon's not going to play in this one. Can you go back to Samaje Perine? I'd like to see that, Bloom, but it's Baltimore, and even with their backups in, they'll play swarming defense. They'll play tough defense. So which one of the Bengals are you really trusting? Brandon Allen blew up. Samaje Perine blew up. That's fine. That was a week ago. Right. What about Sunday?
That was the Texans. This is now. Like you said, Brandon Allen maybe making some money. Was it just the Texans? Certainly this is a team that's going to be playing very hard against him with a good defense. Good to see Samaje Perine showing he still got more than a pulse in NFL circles. Giovanni Bernard also. And then T. Higgins. He looks like he's going to be good. Tyler Boyd will be back for this one. But yeah, you're probably not going to play any Bengals and DFS lineups or count on them to overachieve in this one. The other thing is, nice win over Houston last week. But again, with that win, a reshuffling of the top 10, where Cincinnati now is not in position to take Penei Sewell, who is, certainly the best offensive tackle prospect in this draft, maybe the best in the last few drafts. So sometimes a costly win playing for pride. Brandon Allen making some money, but I think maybe they'll get a spot or two back if they lose and get some breaks this week.
Yeah, maybe they'll get a spot or two back, and we'll see what they do next year as they continue to build around Joe Burrow. Pittsburgh and Cleveland, and I've lost interest, Bloom.
Yeah,
because it's Pittsburgh with Mason Rudolph. Mason Rudolph is a terrible quarterback. He's not a bad quarterback. That's Drew Lock. Mason Rudolph is a terrible quarterback, and he's starting. Yay. And for the love of God, watch him throw like 3 touchdowns or something. So then the Steelers go, see, we got our guy when Ben's done. And I'm like, oh my God, nightmare scenario. Mason Rudolph's in, Bloom. I don't even want to watch.
Yeah. I hear you. I mean, here's what this does set up, though, because we all remember what happened last year between the Steelers and the Browns and Mason Rudolph and Myles Garrett. And it sets up the ultimate revenge game, right? I mean, Rudolph, if he plays well enough, can keep the Browns from going to the playoffs. And there was a time about 15 years ago when the Bills needed to beat the Steelers' backups to go to the playoffs. And the Steelers' backups won. That was the Willie Parker game. So that's your plot here. Maybe a little more Anthony McFarland. You know, I mean, we've seen enough of the Steelers' backups, on the offensive line and linebacker. You know what I mean? So it isn't even like, let's see what these guys can do. But yeah, the Steelers doing the smart thing. Take that number 3 seed. So you have to play Baltimore, whatever. You have to beat good teams if you want to go to the Super Bowl. It doesn't matter. And Cleveland, you lucked out on this one. Just don't blow it.
Just don't blow it, and just make sure you have receivers that are going to play.
Right. Stop the COVID outbreak on your team.
Right. Do we have a COVID update on what's going on with those Browns? Is okay. Fine players in their own right. Revenge game, you say, Bloom. I say, how about you? But with who?
Yeah, and for DFS, Chubb and Hunt could get a lot of run in this one. We'll see who's back out of Jarvis Landry, Rashard Higgins. I think they'll get all the receivers back. So you'd expect the offense to have a pretty good game. The Steelers' defense will play with pride, but it'll probably be some backups. Again, I think Harrison Bryant on the COVID list now. So you got to get this worked out, Cleveland, before you get to the playoffs. You got to control the COVID outbreak on your team. And again, Cleveland in a Great Lakes matchup, Lake Erie matchup, would go to face Buffalo if everything holds in these games. And yeah, that would be, I would look forward to it. Contrast in styles and baby steps. What's the drought? Cease 18 years. I think that we can close our eyes and remember the last time the Browns were in the playoffs. And it was a Browns-Steelers game, which means it wasn't a happy-making game for the Browns.
It was the Kelly Holcomb game, right?
Yeah.
It was actually pretty exciting. It was like 500 yards or whatever. Like, it's been a while.
Still lost.
Imagine how many people are like, Kelly Holcomb, who's that? It's been that long, that's for sure. Minnesota and Detroit is the next game we're going to talk about. And the Minnesota side of things, you've had players that you trust and that you love, and Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen and Dalvin Cook. Okay, Kyle Rudolph's down. More Irv Smith. Yay. What does this all mean in Week 17 for your Vikings, Bloom?
Well, this is a season that we can't say was a disaster for Minnesota, right? The trade for Justin Jefferson, Diggs for Jefferson, worked out well. Signing Dalvin Cook worked out well. I mean, look, Dalvin Cook is showing he actually adds value in this offense in a way that Alexander Madison or Mike Boone or Amir Abdullah can't. Even the extension for Cousins has been playing pretty well. Zimmer. So they have everything together. See, this isn't a team that we're saying, where are they headed? I don't think they're going to trade Cousins. It'll be interesting to see if San Francisco makes a run at him, but I don't think so. There's other quarterbacks out there. The defense started to play better as the season went on. A lot of new faces there. Remember, this is Rick Spielman saying, let's go for it. I'm going to trade for Yannick Ngakoue. Oh, we're not going to do it. I'm going to trade away Yannick Ngakoue at a loss, but not a complete loss. So Minnesota can get things going in the right direction. I don't know if they're necessarily a team to make a Super Bowl run with the pieces they have now, but it's not like quite like turning around a cruise ship. See, so I don't know what we would compare it to. It's just like the veering down the slope, like on the slalom, and they're staying on the course. I do think that you like Minnesota for your Week 17 DFS, right? Like Dalvin Cook, Thielen, Jefferson, because it's Detroit. And Detroit's the team, Cease, again, we got to talk about this. Last week on Saturday afternoon, some of us who never turn off a football game were turning off the Tampa-Detroit game. It was just that embarrassing for the Lions.
It was just that bad for the Lions. And I don't see it getting much better this week, Bloom. Who the hell's going to be a quarterback? Right. Okay, it's Wednesday morning. We're recording this. I'll check the injury reports because I have to, but I'm like, I don't care who's playing for the Lions. It just doesn't matter.
No. Burn it down. Burn it all down. And this is where franchises get off course, right? Because let's be fair. At the beginning of this year, see, at this time last year, if you asked any of us, is Matt Patricia the answer? No.
No.
Is Bob Quinn the answer at GM? No.
No.
It's time to turn the page. And because you're turning the page, is Matthew Stafford the answer at quarterback? Probably not, right? I mean, at this point in his career, they were sitting at number 3. They were sitting at number 3. And there was some speculation they would trade down to a Miami, to a Chargers, maybe to a third team because of those quarterbacks that were there, Tua Tagovailoa and Justin Herbert. And we haven't seen any sign that would have been a bad move to take them. So, if they were honest with themselves at this time last year, they could have swept the deck, brought in somebody and said, pick your quarterback out of these two. Go for it. Instead, now they're picking number 7 right now. I don't know if they'll move up, but, the new GM, the new head coach will have to make a move up for a quarterback. We'll see what happens with Matthew Stafford. So they delayed this by not having clarity. And yeah, for the poor Lions fans, let's just get this season over with.
Let's just get it done and let's move on. That's what the Lions fans want to do. And we'll do that well with the Jets. Jets and Patriots up next. No Frank Gore. Oh, no Frank Gore. And hopefully not the end of Frank Gore. And Bloom, honestly, I'd just rather talk about Frank Gore. And the Patriots side, by the way, have we seen the last of Cam Newton? Like, I'd rather talk about that than talk about the Jets this week.
Yeah. Bye-bye Gase. Number 2 pick, Justin Fields. I don't know. We'll start talking quarterbacks. And that's it, really. I mean, we'll see what comes next. We'll see who they can bring in. Not really sure even what pieces they have to build around. Quinnen Williams, got a little banged up at the end of the year. I don't know. Remember, they traded away Jamal Adams. They're going to get Seattle's pick. That's going to be a pick in the 20s. I don't know. Jets fans, I mean, at least you're not falling. Once we hit Adam Gase fired, we know that the flaming car that went over the cliff hit the ground. We put out the fire, look for bodies, move on.
In the movie writing department, Bloom,
yeah,
there is the all is lost moment.
Yeah.
Now, when you get to the all is lost moment, there should be about 30 minutes left in your movie. Okay. So anytime I can't remember what I was watching the other day, and I was like, oh, this is the all is lost moment. So I pressed pause, and there's like 27 minutes left. So I was like, okay, perfect. It's the all is lost moment. I think the all is lost moment, there's been more than 30 minutes left for the Jets because it's been a long, long time. The Patriots, all is lost without Tommy Brady. We'll see what they do at quarterbacks. Not going to be Cam Newton. So, what do they do as a last hurrah for Bill Belichick and company?
Right. Who's going to start at quarterback? I don't know. I mean, don't you just feel that you're seeing how little confidence they have in Jared Stidham? It's almost like we don't need to see him because we know already.
Yeah.
I mean, or it's just a tremendous amount of respect for Cam Newton, which I'm okay with, but that's not really being very honest with yourself about where your team is. And see, I've said this before, but this is our parting shot. I'm not going to talk about the Patriots again this year. What is this team's identity? What do you hang your hat on? I mean, is it just Belichick? Is it just, we've got Belichick? Because that's not magical. That's not going to change things. This is the year that was all unmasked. He's not going to have some secret trick for every opponent to be, even though he's outgunned and outmanned. So what is it? Is it Stephon Gilmore, who might be going into his last year with the team? Is it, I don't know, Chase Winovich and Adam Butler, getting the most out of these low-rated? Is that the offensive line? They got Michael Onwenu, who's been pretty good. I mean, where do you start? This is a rebuilding team, Cease, and I'm looking at the materials they have. I think you need to go to Home Depot or something. I mean, there's just not a lot there.
Right. Yeah, it's not a lot here. The cupboards are bare, and we'll see what they do next season and beyond. Dallas and the Giants, hot NFC East talk. And Andy Dalton, can you keep doing that? Okay, against the Giants you can. So do you have confidence, Bloom, with what Zeke did last week? Continue to do it again. And Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup and CeeDee Lamb, all those weapons that Dalton finally got the best out of. Well, it's the Giants. He might be able to do it again.
Yeah, so here we go. Both of these teams are still in it for a home playoff game. Dallas needs a win, and both of these teams need Philadelphia to beat Washington. So it's kind of a win in your maybe in game. Dallas's defense, I'm sorry, their offense is hot. Defense, not as much, but enough. But Giants defense, not as good as what we'd seen earlier this year. So, yeah, Andy Dalton's hot. All three of the wide receivers are hot. Zeke is coming on. And this is an offense probably you do want to dabble in your DFS lineups. And again, how absurd is the NFC East? 3 of the 4 teams are still alive right now. This game matters, and it will set up our subplot for the last regular season game of the year.
Yeah, on the Giants side of things, well, you go from the Cowboys of, well, I feel like I can trust those guys, to the Giants like, I don't feel like I trust any of them.
Yeah.
Even Wayne Gallman, again, windows, people, you're capturing windows. Like James Robinson had a window that was 14 weeks long. That window's done. Spoiler alert.
Mm-hmm.
With Wayne Gallman, like his window's done. It's Daniel Jones. He never had a window. Like, okay, just peeking through cracks, peeking through keyholes, Bloom. And, well, I'm not trusting the Giants this week.
Yeah, what did this Joe Judge regime really accomplish this year? Maybe they'll get a playoff berth.
Being a jerk.
I know.
Start at the combine when he wouldn't even say Saquon Barkley's name.
Right.
Like, really, dude? Really? The Patriots way.
Right. Well, the Patriots way when you haven't won yet is a way, it's a dead end. Look, they had a good defense for part of the year. Daniel Jones, it doesn't seem like is meshing well with what they have. I don't know. Again, this is another team that, what are you hanging your hat on? What are you building around, even though you're still in the playoffs? One thing's clear. This team needs to score 20 points to win. If they're held under 20 points, they're not going to win. Last time around, this game was 37-34, and it was the Andy Dalton comeback. It was the game that Dak Prescott left, and Andy Dalton led that comeback, and that's how Dallas is still in this. And that's how the Giants don't control their own destiny, by the way. So it could be exciting. It could be a high-scoring game. In that case, maybe Sterling Shepard. He had 9 for 77 and a touchdown last week. And that's about as excited as we can get about NFC East football.
Yeah, that's it, everybody. There you go. NFC East. That's what you get. Atlanta and Tampa, and this one's a little bit more interesting. And the Atlanta side is that side that's interesting. And it is because of Matt Ryan and those assets, mainly like a Calvin Ridley. I don't know if you're trusting Hayden Hurst. You're not trusting those backs. And, of course, Julio Jones. Bloom, let's talk about the Falcons this week, as this is the last early game, this one against the Buccaneers.
Yeah, Calvin Ridley, I guess. I mean, the excellence that is Calvin Ridley. Atlanta trying to keep Tampa from getting the number 5 seed, I guess. They're at a crossroads. Ryan and Julio will be back next year, but we know the long-term plan is, well, to be determined. One name I hear kicked around a lot for their GM job, Brad Holmes, director of college scouting for the Rams. He's been with the Rams organization for 18 years. So that would certainly be a different direction for this team. And we asked that same question, Cecil. What does Atlanta have to build around? Calvin Ridley, I don't know, Deion Jones, Grady Jarrett, Keanu Neal, if they can all stay healthy, the backbone of that defense, I guess. You start to think about these things, and what's the better pitch? Draft picks and rebuilding, or Deshaun Watson? Would you rather just punt your first and second round pick and say, well, I have Deshaun Watson, and I know I have that? I don't know. I'm thinking when I'm looking at these situations, probably is Deshaun Watson. And Tampa at the other end of the spectrum. A couple of years, Cecil, we'll be talking about Tampa and their rebuilding.
Yeah, a couple of years we'll be talking about that. And, well, let's see what else we can talk about. Tampa right now, of course, with Ronald Jones back, Bloom. So that's kind of the crux of the conversation here, because we could talk about Antonio Brown and Mike Evans and blah, 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 which we already know. But Ronald Jones is back. So is he back, or is he just a little bit back, where they try to warm him up for the playoffs and still give Fournette, 15 touches?
And look, the Atlanta defense has been pretty good against running backs anyway, so I don't know if that's what we're looking at here. We're looking at Brady. We're looking at the wide receivers, Gronkowski, if we're looking for DFS options here. But it's not Detroit's defense. It's not a pushover defense. And again, it's not trivial. Tampa needs to win to lock up the 5 seed. Why is that important? Because that means they would go to face the winner of the NFC East. Very important. If they lose and the Rams win, Then they fall to the number 6 seed, and that really throws a monkey wrench in their plans. Because, see, where do they want to go? They want to go to Green Bay, right? They want to face Green Bay again. You know, it was like 3 o'clock after school. They met in the back in the playground, and they beat up Green Bay. And now when Green Bay's been seeing them in the hallway, they've been ducking down the other hallway and avoiding them. So Tampa get this win, and the path to that happening is a little easier.
Path to it happening is a little bit easier. Path to the afternoon games is what we're up next, and there is Green Bay, and there is Chicago, and this one at Chicago. I don't have NFLweather.com open, Bloom, but, well, both of these teams are cold weather teams anyway. So on the Packers side, is it as simple as it normally is with your Green Bay starters?
It's just going to be cold, not very windy. No snow in the forecast there. Green Bay needs to win and get the number 1 seed. And we saw how, I don't know, it's not that hot in Nashville, but Tennessee looked like they were a team that just didn't translate to the cold weather. I'm not sure what happened there. Also, just checking in with your viewing guide. As you said, Cecil, we're turning the page to the afternoon games. At this point, we're going to know everything in the AFC except Indianapolis and Tennessee. We're going to know about Tampa Bay. We're going to know at least who has a chance to win the NFC East if Washington can't beat Philadelphia. And now we get to some other stakes. Number 1 seed on the line here. Is it going to be an Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon split going forward? That's the main question I have coming out of Week 16 for this backfield with Jamal Williams banged up. Of course, you like Rodgers to Adams. And we'll see. I mean, see, Green Bay has a chance to lock up the number 1 seed here. Will that give you confidence that they're the Super Bowl favorite? I would probably say there's still a less than 50% chance they'll make the Super Bowl, but getting the road to go through Lambeau is a good start.
It is a good start for you. And the Bears, the Mitchell Trubisky apology sheet. Have you seen that one floating around, Bloom, where it's like, I'm sorry, Mitchell Trubisky, and here's why the media is at fault or whatever. It's like, okay, well, you're going to keep Matt Nagy and Mitchell Trubisky? Kind of like the Matt Patricia conversation we had earlier.
Right, exactly. And they can even win. Look, if the Rams beat Arizona, the Bears are in regardless. So that's fascinating. It's all Dave Montgomery. I think that what Chicago needs is to get some stops from their defense and run Dave Montgomery like 35 times in this game. Not put it in Trubisky's hands, although he's been playing better. And you know that in any tough situation, he should look for Allen Robinson. So maybe Allen Robinson is the guy to look for here in this passing game. But if this ends up being a game where Mitchell Trubisky has to keep up with Aaron Rodgers, that's where it all goes wrong. And maybe that's what the Bears fans ultimately want, is for that true nature of Trubisky. Look, we've seen him made a couple of really bad end zone interceptions lately. So is that what you're rooting for? Either way, Bears have a couple of ways to go to the playoffs. This is what 7 teams in the playoffs gets us.
That's what it gets you, and that's what it gets us. Is next up. Oh God, we got to talk about it. Vegas and Denver. Hey, everybody. Hey. Okay, Vegas side first. Darren Waller, of course.
Yeah.
Start Darren Waller. Fantasy Jams. Our guy Jason talking about the Raiders. Okay, Jacob's gonna crap the bed. Like, all right. Hey, everybody, it's Derek Carr for the last time for the Raiders. Like, all right. Not terribly exciting on either side, Bloom.
No. Another swoon in December. It doesn't matter because John Gruden's got like a 10-year contract. Like you said, Darren Waller's the one guy we're going to trust here. We have all of offseason to talk about Derek Carr and Marcus Mariota. And yeah, there's this game and there's the Jets New England game that are just games that make you, and Minnesota Detroit to an extent. But really, it's the Jets New England game and the Vegas Denver game where you say, oh, I think I just threw up in my mouth.
Right. Yeah, I think it's bad times if you're relying on any of your Denver Broncos or Las Vegas Raiders. And with the Broncos side, I guess Melvin Gordon, Jerry Jeudy going to catch the passes this time. And, well, there's Drew Lock, ladies and gentlemen. People say he's turned the corner, and I always laugh at that, Bloom. And I say, he's turned the corner, then why are they going to work to replace him?
Yeah.
Like, the language in the NFL is money. And when the Broncos add a Matthew Stafford and Andy Dalton, one of these type of Tyrod Taylor, one of these type of quarterbacks, it's like, Drew Lock, he's turning the corner. To what? To being a backup? Nah, whatever. Don't get me started, Bloom. I don't have the energy to conjure up any sort of ill feelings toward the Broncos because that's all I have.
Yeah, right. Oh, poor Cecil. It's been a long year for Cecil.
Ha.
And again, Cecil, we go into that conversation of they're picking 10th, but they're in position to move up from one of these quarterbacks. But keeping Fangio, like you said, looking for some veteran answer, they're not going to do it. They're not going to get a quarterback out of this
keeping
draft.
Shermer too. Like,
yeah.
One thing about Shermer is he's there every day. Like, oh my God.
Yeah,
You're keeping the band together when the band is awful.
Cease. If Drew Lock is turning the corner is in an MC Escher piece where you just go in a circle, you turn the corner and you keep turning the corner and you keep turning the corner and you're just stuck there forever. This is the life of Broncos fan Cecil Lammey, the Broncos organization, just going in a circle.
That's right, everybody. But you'll still show up when the doors are open, right? Jacksonville and Indianapolis just came across the wire that Mike Glennon's going to start. No quarterback competition this week, Bloom, and Glennon is not going to hand off to James Robinson because he's done for the year. And what a great addition, right? We just need to give it up to James Robinson and what he was able to do for fantasy GMs and look forward to his future in London or whatever. It's like, okay, they'll move on, and here we go with Dare Ogunbowale or Divine Azigbo or whatever. Let's talk about DJ Chark, I guess. It's against the Colts, Bloom. Not real excited to start my Jaguars, but you could say that almost every week about almost every player except for James Robinson.
Yeah. Here's the headline for Jags this week. We didn't take a proper moment to do this, Cease. Let's celebrate along with Jags. We did it! We did it! They did it! Just watch this game and picture this offense with Trevor Lawrence. That's all. That's fun, right?
Yeah.
Eric Stoner, my man, showing up my text messages like, maybe this offense could be good with Trevor Lawrence. You know? Maybe. It's fun. It's exciting. Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence. Enjoy it. Take your victory, Cease. If 2020 reminds us of anything, enjoy your victories where you get them, however small.
However small and however you get them. It's kind of like when Phillip Rivers is your quarterback. You're just going to take it. How do you get it? How'd you have to do it? Well, any way possible. So that's what you do with Phillip Rivers and Jonathan Taylor leading the way on the ground. People wondering about those wide receivers, which one to start. Nobody's starting the tight ends. So that leaves our options fairly limited here, Bloom.
Very much so. We will know, again, Indianapolis will still technically be alive here because if Houston beats Tennessee, even if Cleveland, Miami, Baltimore all win in the early games, Houston beats Tennessee, they can still get in. But come on. Let's face it. They're probably not going to make the playoffs. Even with 7 teams in the playoffs, they're going to go 11-5, probably, and not make the playoffs. Cease, is this unfair?
No.
No. You know why? What's the one in Jacksonville's 1-15?
It's Indianapolis.
Week 1. There it was. Sorry, when you're the 1 in a 1-15, then you can't complain about missing the playoffs. And we'll see some more Jonathan Taylor in this game, some redemption there. I think the big question here is you bring Rivers back for another go-round because it isn't like it was a failure. It isn't like you would say, well, they didn't make the playoffs because of Rivers. Rivers, I think, based on reasonable expectations, was pretty good this year, actually. But another year closer, maybe his foot is just going to explode in a puff of smoke and he'll have to hobble around like a peg leg. I don't know. Right. So there's the question for the Colts. Another interesting quarterback market. Do you change horses? It's not quite midstream, but you're about to try to cross the stream again. So Colts, horses, Rivers, it all makes sense.
Yeah, the rivers run dry. Okay, let's talk about the Chargers and the Chiefs. And this one's lost interest, Bloom, because Kansas City's not starting anybody. So what does that mean for your Chargers players?
Yeah, and this is the other game, I think, where there's just nothing going on here. By the way, it looks like Dalvin Cook's not going to play. Just came up, Courtney Cronin reporting that Dalvin Cook's father passed away, 46. Eric's body in the chat room telling us too. So much for Dalvin Cook. Maybe that focuses your DFS plays on the passing game, but that just feels. I'm sorry, I even said anything about DFS in the sentence after our condolences to Dalvin Cook, and I don't want to say our condolences to the Chargers because so many things happen in a football season. Cease. Justin Herbert's having one of the 2 or 3 greatest rookie seasons of all time for a quarterback. Certainly top 5. And go ahead.
Well, who's he behind?
Dan Marino.
Well, in the modern era. We'll say.
In the modern era, Cam Newton, Robert Griffin III, Dak. I mean, it's a debate.
Andrew Luck.
Yeah, I mean, Ben Roethlisberger had a tremendous rookie year, but he only had to drive it slow in the driveway. So either way, so many things happened this year that let's take a moment to appreciate that Justin Herbert's one of the greatest rookie quarterbacks ever. And the Chargers, again, the question for them is Anthony Lynn. Probably not going to see Keenan Allen, so I don't know. You want to take a chance on someone in the passing game here because Kansas City's not going to be playing their starters. And then what's happening with Joshua Kelly? Was he a healthy scratch last week? Did I read that right? Now he's behind Kalen Ballage and Justin Jackson. So that's just something to watch for your deep dynasty watch. And for Kansas City, the king is on the throne. Can anyone knock them off the throne?
Yeah, it's the book of Boba Fett or the book of Pat Mahomes. I don't know. He's not playing. Tyreek Hill's not playing. Travis Kelce's not playing. Sammy Watkins is not playing, but no one would ever notice. So, I don't know, Bloom. I'm sorry for being so dialed out in week 17, but I'm like, oh my God, this is why you don't play in week 17. You're going to spend your whole season riding your Chiefs to get here, and now nobody's playing.
Right.
Congrats.
Right. This is why. Can I just say this, Cease?
Sure.
I don't know if we've talked about this. Boba Fett was always my favorite Star Wars character. Like, I'm not super geeked out on Star Wars. My wife's son Noah loves Star Wars, and he asked me all these questions about Star Wars, and I just sent him to Wikipedia. Do you ever go to Wikipedia?
Of course.
Wikipedia. It's awesome. It's clever. But as a kid, when Star Wars would come up, Boba Fett that was my jam. Boba Fett. He had the coolest looking ship, Slave One, Slave I.
Yeah.
He wasn't on anybody's side. He was on his own side.
He's just a simple man trying to make his way through the galaxy.
Exactly. And I think it's great that the Star Wars universe has finally caught up to Boba Fett being at the center of it, because he, good versus evil. Yeah, that story goes on and on and on. But what about the lone wolf? What about the Wanderer, Boba Fett? Yes, I'm excited. I'm excited for the book of Boba Fett. And I have not been excited about anything Star Wars since I was like 10 years old.
Okay. Then I want you to tell Noah this, because this is my ultimate, whenever I run into other Star Wars fans, like, oh, you love Star Wars too? Yeah. What's a Dianoga?
Okay.
If you can't answer what a Dianoga is, you're not a Star Wars fan. And spoiler alert, the Dianoga in A New Hope is the trash compactor monster that comes and grabs Luke.
Great special
That's
effects.
a Dianoga. Yeah. So if you know that, okay. Yeah. Then we can talk.
All right.
What were we talking about?
Star Wars studies is going to be a thing. You want to be a professor in the Star Wars studies department, get your bachelor's in Star Wars?
Sure.
It's coming.
I'd ace those classes. And studying the hero's journey is fascinating, by the way. Just on a side note, just like the story again, like once you realize the formula for writing movies, you're like, ooh, that's fascinating when something is written so well. Anyway,
it's like when you pan back and you see the whole fractal instead of just a little arm of the fractal that you're on.
Right.
You know?
And then you can appreciate things at an even higher level. Like Legally Blonde, almost from a writing standpoint, is almost perfectly written. With the beats that it has, with the rhythms, with the tropes that it uses. And so you appreciate it on a higher level. It was always like a good movie, like, whatever, Legally Blonde. It's not a bad movie. But then when you realize the way it's written, you're like, wow. And then when you compare it to the new Star Wars trilogy, the sequel trilogy, you're like, they had no idea.
No, they didn't.
They had no idea what they were doing. They were making it up as they went along, and you could totally tell.
We deserve better.
Yeah, well, that's why they're going to retcon it in the World Between Worlds. And because that's, okay, what we saw, spoiler alert, in the final episode of Mando, like, that's what we all wanted to see. That's the Luke Skywalker we wanted to see. So now you retcon that because that's just a different timeline. And there is time travel in Star Wars. It's from Rebels. So they've already dabbled in it. Bloom, I'd rather talk about this than the Chiefs in week 17.
Yeah, Chad Henne. Chad Henne's still in the league. There you go.
That's it. All right, we'll move on from that hot Star Wars talk. Arizona and the Rams. This one means something. It does. And with the Rams, you're like, I don't know how you're going to do it, but you're going to try. And with the Cardinals, you go, okay, well, Chase Edmonds a little bit banged up, sure, and Nuke and Kyler's a little bit banged up. So, both of these sides, one quarterback, Goff's not going to play. Well, Kyler Murray's going to play, but he's not right. And he hasn't been right for a while now. Mm-hmm. So what does that mean for the Cardinals in this game with something on the line?
Yeah, I mean, Cooper Kupp's going to be out for this one. Kyler Murray, there's at least some doubt, but it sounds like he's going to practice some. Maybe we'll see some Chris Streveler, some Taysom Hill action. You have to think they're going to go with Kenyon Drake. Well, you have to think they're going to know that they don't have to score a lot. They don't have to take a lot of risks on offense. Like the best chance for the Rams to score in this game might be Aaron Donald's strip sack or something like that, or Jalen Ramsey jumping a route with DeAndre Hopkins. But on the other side, is this where DeAndre Hopkins does his Randy Moss thing, where he's like, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. It doesn't matter how the quarterback's playing. I'm going to make the plays to get us to the playoffs. Arizona wins, and they're in. And if that happens, then the Rams are going to be depending on the Packers to beat the Bears. If the Bears beat the Packers, Cardinals beat the Rams. Rams are out. So what a season for them. Of course, if the Cardinals lose, they're out regardless. Bears are in. So, it's wild, Cease, that one of the most dramatic games is going to be a game started by John Wolford. Maybe you should have done better at backup quarterback, Rams.
Yeah, they're bringing in Blake Bortles too late.
Yeah.
So there we go. John Wolford, hot John Wolford talk. No Cooper Kupp. Okay. And then no running backs to speak of. Malcolm Brown, what's he going to get, like 40 carries?
Right.
Like, okay, there's not much there, Bloom. Somewhere John Kelly's bumping around. He doesn't have a job now. So, whatever.
It's Sean McVay. What kind of magic can you pull? What kind of play calling? I mean, in some ways, this could be fun, right? You going into this game, you have to win with your backup quarterback. You can really pull some things out, try some things. You have, I would guess, a wider berth. Try to have the defense keep this one close. I thought there was some chance that Cam Akers will be back, but Malcolm Brown, Xavier Jones, undrafted free agent who made the team. Without Cooper Kupp out there, maybe Robert Woods, but you're depending on that quarterback. As we talked about on the recap show, John Wolford, Will Wolford's nephew. So there's your NFL bloodlines. But Cease, did you know this? You probably do. Who beat out John Wolford to be the starting quarterback in 2016 at Wake Forest?
At Wake Forest?
Yeah.
Tell me who it is.
Kendall Hinton.
Kendall Hinton. There we go.
It all comes back to Kendall Hinton in 2020.
The Hall of Fame now. And this isn't on Kendall, but that's so embarrassing. Like, hey, they sent his wristband to the Hall of Fame and his cleats because nobody's ever, like, I feel bad for Kendall Hinton. I'm glad that, he gets remembered that way, I guess, but it's also like an embarrassing, the Hall of Embarrassment, like,
right.
As a franchise, that's how laughable the Broncos are now.
Right. It's like, here's the shirt Joe Namath was wearing when he was drunk on the air at Susie Colbert. Let's send that to the Hall of Fame.
Right. I want to kiss you. Oh, how times have changed, Bloom. Yeah. Seattle, San Francisco. Let's get that one done. And there's more injuries to speak of, more guys getting shut down. But on the Seattle side, it's like, well, you're shutting them down anyway. Yeah. If you are playing in Week 17, is your secret recipe for a championship not playing your Seahawks? It might have been to get you this point.
It might have been. So, number one seed on the line. If Chicago beats Green Bay, and Carolina loses to New Orleans. Yeah, that one's a little tougher. Carolina played New Orleans tougher earlier this year. Seattle can still get the number one seed. But yeah, they're going to take it easy in any scenario on offense. It hasn't been the right play to play your Seahawks unless they're playing the Jets lately. That's how it will remain. But, see, when we handicap the NFC bracket, I mean, you have to like a team with a coach, a quarterback, a lot of players, a lot of experience in the playoffs, and some different modes now. Maybe that was what it was all about, was having some different modes they can change into on offense. Defense, a little bit of pride. It's San Francisco. The year after you win the Super Bowl, this gets kind of familiar. Win the Super Bowl. The year after you lose the Super Bowl, the year after you lose the Super Bowl, and you have so many questions now, starting with quarterback. We knew it was going to start for them this week, but who will start for them in week 1 of 2021?
That's what we're waiting to find out. And the next game we're going to talk about, well, actually, we got to get to the 49ers side. This is what week 17 does to me, Bloom. Again, I apologize for my unprofessionalism today. But the 49ers, what? No Ayuk in this one, Bloom, right? CJ Beathard out there tossing dimes. Okay, fine. Jeff Wilson maybe helping you get to your fantasy championship. I don't know. It's week 17.
Yep. Ayuk out, Trent Williams out. We'll see what Trent Williams is going to do next year. Jeff Wilson running well. Seattle's defense is playing better, though. It is just great to see George Kittle back out there, looking like George Kittle. This is a good rivalry, so San Francisco is going to play hard, and we saw that. They were happy to give Arizona a black eye. Kyle Shanahan has this team as a well-coached team. But again, it all comes back to quarterback. A lot of different choices. It's a fork in the road with like 7 different directions, right? They could move up in the draft. They could sign or trade for a bunch of guys. They could stick with Jimmy. Who knows? It's not going to be Nick Mullins. I know that.
We know that. We know New Orleans and Carolina is the next game we're going to talk about. And the Saints side of things, it's like, okay, Alvin Kamara, thank you. Thank you. Or not thank you. I ran up against him in the my BMW contest, sack Cecil.
Uh-oh.
So I took an L. Big time. Big L. Because of Alvin Kamara. Well, fantasy GMs that are playing this week say, can you do what you did earlier, please? Or at least half Eddie of that. And other Saints players are like, we can score too. Against Carolina, Bloom, everybody could score.
So they can get the 1 seed if Green Bay loses to Chicago and they win this one. I wonder, though, do you rest Alvin Kamara? You know, Jameis Winston, is he off the COVID list? I don't know. Let him play. I mean, they're kind of look at this like the Steelers, although maybe they'll do some scoreboard watching also. It makes Kamara a risky play, though. Makes Murray an interesting play. Not really relying a lot on the passing game. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. Really, my main question here, Cecil, are we going to finally get to see some P.J. Walker?
Maybe. And we'll see if that happens on the flip side, because Teddy's not the long-term answer. No. We love him. God bless him, working back from that injury. A lot of guys could have just quit. Could have just been like, well, I'm not going to play anymore. And he didn't quit. He fought back. And it's just not happening. No Christian McCaffrey, of course, he's shut down. And all right, here we go, Mike Davis again. We all know that. All right. And then, of course, with a quarterback situation, complicates your receivers and your decisions therein.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to play anyone from this game for the Panthers in your DFS lineups. DJ Moore had a couple touchdowns first time out, so maybe hoping for a breakdown in the secondary for him. He was the best receiver last week for Carolina. And for Matt Rule, it was a successful enough first season. I think you got things going in the direction. And see, so we're not asking, what are you building around if you're the Panthers? You know, Christian McCaffrey, these wide receivers, Brian Burns, Jeremy Chin had a tremendous rookie year. A lot of things to be excited about. And that win last week, maybe the one thing to not be as excited about, because it dropped them all the way down to number 9. If they had lost to Washington last week, right now they'd be number 3. So, at least they got Brian Burns. Here's some 6 degrees separation stuff for you, Cease. Ian Rappaport saying, teams interested in Dwayne Haskins. Carolina, the only team mentioned, but other teams are intrigued. Not really sure how to parse that. Like, is Haskins camp trying to drum up some interest by saying there is at least a team interested? Right. I don't know. But because Washington didn't take Dwayne Haskins, the pick there would have been Brian Burns. And then apparently Marty Herney's pick would have been Greg Little. Greg Little in the first round, who seems like they already are kind of lukewarm on the new regime. So some good luck there for the Panthers, and some good luck for this team to know where they're headed. And Matt Rule probably have a pretty good captain.
I think in the NFL, we're going to see more teams do the Josh Rosen, do the Dwayne Haskins. We're like, we just don't like you anymore. Bye. And then you have Denver, who's like, I don't know. Give him another year.
Maybe.
We'll see. I don't know. Maybe. It's always the Broncos show. Always getting back to that, Bloom. Oh, the frustrations there in Tennessee and Houston. Start everybody.
Yeah.
Tennessee. Yeah, start them all. You're regular.
Worked for the Bengals last week, right?
Yeah.
It worked for the Bengals. Derrick Henry used 228 to go over 2,000. I hope that Mike Vrabel gives him a chance.
Yes.
Like you said, A.J. Brown, Corey Davis, Johnny Smith, Ryan Tannehill. These are your DFS plays. And, Deshaun Watson. Oh. But again, is that the best job because of him? I think there's a case to be made for it. But, yeah, not having that number 3 pick, not having that second-round pick, a little bit of a head start for everybody else.
How do you feel about your Texans this week, Bloom, including Kiki Cutie out there?
Well, you know that Watson's going to fight. I mean, Watson's not going to roll over, so he could be a good DFS quarterback. David Johnson. Remember, David Johnson's probably not going to be with this team. So here's some interesting things, too. Not only do they not have their picks next year, but, David Johnson's going to be a free agent. Brandon Cooks is due like $12 million next year. Are they restructuring him? Is he going elsewhere? So not a lot of answers here. This is a team, Cease, that really intrigues me with a John Dorsey, Eric Bieniemy combination. If I could pick, who ends up where, give them Deshaun Watson, and let's get it on.
Yeah, the early buzz is Houston's after Bieniemy. So
I like it.
Yeah, I like it too. I like it for Deshaun. Just please, for the love of God, stay healthy in this game. Washington and Philadelphia is the next game up, and well, no more Dwayne Haskins, but Antonio Gibson. And this is a Sunday Night Football game. Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Sunday Night Football. Okay, let's talk about Washington. The Simses, Gibson, love him, and then what? Alex Smith, the quarterback.
I don't know. That's the thing. Alex Smith, maybe Taylor Heineke. Is this what 2020 NFL culminates in, Cease? Taylor Heineke?
Old Dominion.
And Jalen Hurts? Yeah, just the way everyone had it. So we'll know which team can back in if Washington loses this one. We'll see, is Terry McLaurin going to be back? I'm not even sure who. Logan Thomas? I mean, J.D. McKissick? I mean, these are the guys you can count on. J.D. McKissick had the role. See, did I tell you that I needed 39.25 from Stephon Diggs on Monday night and got 41.5? It was a miracle. It was the most miraculous fantasy football championship I've ever won.
The season of miracles.
It really is. And J.D. McKissick's long touchdown catch helped set that up. Winning your in, Ron Rivera, battling cancer. So applause to him. Everything this Washington team has had to deal with. Moving on from Dwayne Haskins, maybe one of the accomplishments of the year.
Maybe one of the accomplishments of the year. And we know that the Eagles side, they're going with Jalen Hurts again. Deshaun Jackson probably get a long catch in this. He doesn't have any value unless he catches a long 80-yard bomb for a touchdown. Okay, whatever. And then Miles Sanders. Who else are we looking at here for the Eagles, Bloom?
It's Washington's defense, so I don't know that we're necessarily looking at anybody as a strong play. Zach Ertz, I don't know, Dallas Goedert's banged up. The big question here is, first of all, Giants. It's funny, Giants, Cowboys fans, one of those two fan bases, whichever one wins. Big-time Eagles fans on Sunday night. Strange bedfellows NFL makes. And then, obviously, the question here is Wentz and Hurts, who's going to start week 1. See, so I saw one betting market already has Wentz as the favorite, a slight favorite, but still the favorite. So that should tell you that there's a story to unfold here. The Eagles story this year did not unfold in a happy way, but maybe Jalen Hurts changes that in hindsight, and maybe he gets a Washington football team pelt on his wall and keeps them from going to the playoffs. Certainly something to play for Sunday night.
You sound like John Fox. The skins on the wall.
Yeah.
Good old Foxy.
Notch in the bedpost.
I miss those days, man, where Foxy'd run around. He'd tell you Dick Cheney jokes on the sidelines. Like, it was just, he was so awesome, dude. Like, Foxy was so cool. And he's like old school, right? Yeah. Now the Broncos just have an old.
That's a perfect
old
headline.
School. Yeah, there you go.
No school, just old.
Yeah. Well, you got to stop having someone keep their job because you're buddies with them.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's not nepotism, but it's just like, hey, Vic Fangio and Joe Ellis get along great. Vic Fangio's not going anywhere, everybody. Like, there you go. You can tell what's on my mind, Bloom. Yeah. Got 3 hours to work it out tonight with Nick Ferguson on the Fan. So everyone stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for us next year, Bloom. This is a wrap for this season. Of course, you got your show tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's been a hell of a year. I actually very surprised we actually got to this point. Because we were all very worried that we wouldn't get here and what have you. And everyone out there, calendar's going to flip over. And, we got to get back on the road to positivity. We got to get back on the road to togetherness and unity and all those sorts of things. Like, let's put the fear and the divisiveness of 2020 behind us. Let's do that as communities. Let's do that as friends, as coworkers, as family members. It's all up to us. No one's your magic savior.
Exactly.
You don't drop anything in a box and all of a sudden everything's changed. Okay. That's you are the ones. You have the power to change in the people around you and to help implement change in your communities, help implement change your local level. Like, this is how we do things. This is how we get better, while also being neighborly and masking up and social distance, wash your hands and all that stuff that you need to continue to do. Like, let's go out and make 2021 better. Not because the calendar flipped, but because we all made the choice to be better. We all made the choice to be at a higher level of consciousness and bring that forward in our daily interactions. Doesn't matter if you're at the grocery store or driving somewhere, like whatever, just be a human being, Bloom. I love that. That's going to be an Audible history, right? Be a human being.
Nothing would make my dad happier than to know that we're quoting him right now. Isn't that what all fathers want, is to know that their children have gotten a little bit of wisdom, at least from sharing this space with them. And yeah, Cecil, I think that there's something important that comes you come away with there, that there's no one coming to save us but us. But the flip side of that is it can be very positive and say we can save us. We can save ourselves. We can save each other. And what we watched last night, Cecil? The Bee Gees documentary. It was actually very good.
Okay.
Because I think that for any child of the 70s, the Bee Gees just immediately invoke that warm place, like back in the womb almost, because the music's just so warm and comfortable. But I've been singing it a lot this year. Staying alive. Staying alive. I can't do the falsetto. But and one of the things they point out in the documentary is that song Staying Alive is actually about how rough New York was at the time.
Yeah, people forget that. What, like the 70s and early 80s?
Yeah, it was rough, and you were just staying alive. And I think if you can hear my voice and you've made it this far and your main relationships in your life are still intact and you still have something getting you out of bed every day, this has been a test, but I think we can come out stronger, more appreciative, more mindful than ever before. And we are going to have our roaring 20s. So it's coming. We'll be there together to enjoy it. And most of all, we appreciate you being together for us this year, giving us the opportunity to do this show. It certainly has helped keep my world from falling apart. And we're happy if we can do any of that for you all. So yeah, we'll see you on the flip side.
He's Sigmund. I'm Cecil. Have a safe and happy new year, everyone out there. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We're the Audible. Stay tuned. And peace out. Stay frosty.